Hey.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Storm Gang podcast. Now with, I guess, 33% much better audio coming from me directly.
More
As
than
always, we have, in terms of a third of the people talking, a third of the audio is significantly better right now.
there you go.
We have Pierce and Jason as always. Thank you very much for joining us. And what is on your mind today, gentlemen?
You know, there's a whole lot going on, as there is every right.
We put our chicken today, and it was delicious as always.
Oh yeah. I've definitely I've been taking advantage of the weather lately to having some nice barbecues, man. It's been good. It's been good.
So now that we get the happiness out of the way, who wants to dive into the depressing shit?
Well, all right. So obviously, there's one event that's been taking social media by storm. Unfortunately, there was another police shooting that I don't think Jake Blake has died yet, but I believe that he was hospitalized and paralyzed from the waist down. There was an incident in Wisconsin where police shot a black individual 7 times in the back.
And the video of it is graphic. And it's just at this point, I feel like we're becoming so desensitized to it that it's just kind of like disgusting almost. Like we don't even flinch when we see stuff like that anymore, like streaming around Twitter, or at least I don't at this point. And it's just
people are definitely flinching. So the city of where is the city this is from? Kenosha. The city of Kenosha has had full-blown riots occur. And in fact, one of the riots encroached on a gas station, and it's not clear who the individuals were from a report that I read, but armed individuals chose to exercise their Second Amendment and fired on the riot that encroached on the gas station, and 2 of the rioters or protesters perished in that, I would say, case of self-defense.
Yes.
It's been very, very ugly for the community as a whole.
Yeah, actually, that as of for my understanding,
just
no, go ahead, Jason.
Oh, what was that?
No, you can go ahead.
Oh, I had finished. It was just.
Oh no! What I learned actually a few hours ago is that the individual that shot those people in the on the riots or the protests that happened afterwards was arrested. He was caught back in his home state of Illinois, and it's of course frustrating enough that from the video that I saw, he shot those people. We'll see what due process says, but the fact that police did not immediately make any attempts to apprehend the person was very unfortunately, of course, very disturbing as well. That goes beyond any biases you may have towards any race. Like someone discharged a weapon in a public space, and it wasn't a law enforcement official. Like, it is your duty to make sure people are safe around that, regardless if it was self-defense or not. And on top of that, this individual was underage, so he was under the age of legal right to carry a gun, and he carried it across state borders too. So there's many things that went wrong there. And then another breaking news today. The NBA. I'm sorry. What was the team? The Milwaukee
Bucks.
Yeah, the Wisconsin-based NBA team basically boycotted their playoff game today. So the NBA proceeded to pretty much postpone all the games today, and kind of as a show of solidarity. And that's, from my understanding, something that's never happened before.
Major League Baseball, I think, is also doing the same thing. And the interesting thing about the Bucks, protesting and everything, is that initially the NBA wasn't going to do anything. They were just going to give the forfeit to the Magic. But the Orlando Magic stood up and said, we refuse to accept this, forfeit victory. We're standing in solidarity with, Milwaukee Bucks and their, community and what they're going through. And that kind of forced the NBA's hand into, following suit with, because they were just going to, forfeit the game and continue on, which I think is, just like very interesting, showing the power that athletes actually do have in our community and everything, and how we need to be able to look up to them more.
Yeah. And I think this whole, inflammation that we're having, this sudden inflammation about this event, really illustrates a problem of the 21st century, viral media sensationalism that we have before a lot of things are known. Because there's a lot about this case that, is really, of course, circumstantial, and we don't know a lot of things. So I'll take a bit more of a middle approach here. Police are responding to a 911 call where the complainant that is making the 911 call says, Mr. Blake, she doesn't call him Mr., but that's beside the point. I'm going to call him Mr. That Mr. Blake has his keys, her keys, and refuses to return them to her. So at that point, we have theft, which is, it's a reason for Mr. Blake to be detained when police decide to investigate and question him, right? So everyone says that he was intervening in between a fight between two women. And you know what? It makes sense that he would be like, you shouldn't be driving anywhere. I'm taking your keys, right? This makes sense. Police don't know that, especially since they're getting the version of the story from the complainant who just had her keys taken from her. And again, whether her keys should have been taken from her or not, I don't know. I wasn't there, right? But I'd like to assume the better character of Mr. Blake in this, as well as try to assume the better character of the officer, as you'll see where I have complaints in both going forward. So police respond to that. Something happens. Mr. Blake decides to leave. Now, one report said that the police actually tasered Mr. Blake, and that he got up and, still proceeded to attempt to leave. But when you look at the video that of him being shot once it started recording, the behavior of Mr. Blake is very calm. He's very calmly walking away. Now, I want to emphasize, police at this point still have the legal authority to detain you. And for whatever reason has happened, we don't know all the facts. Police have decided that he's an individual to point their firearms at, which is a serious level of escalation. And at this point, Mr. Blake is choosing to ignore the order to stay, which is a lawful order, and instead choosing to leave and go into his vehicle. So at this point, the police are faced with a conundrum of let him go, which is not what they're supposed to do. They have a legal obligation to enforce the law, or to physically restrain Mr. Blake at this point. So Mr. Blake has put the police in a situation where he must be physically restrained. So now we have, how do the police choose to physically restrain? We have 3 officers on site. One individual chooses to physically go after him. He opens the door. Mr. Blake opens the door. The officer grabs his shirt and then shoots Mr. Blake 7 times in the back. Right? So this is factual. This is what we know has happened.
Yeah.
The officer should not have shot. This is my opinion. This is not a legal definition, all right? Legally speaking, and again, I'm not a legal lawyer or anything by that man. Legally speaking, I believe that the officer is covered, honestly. I think he's in the clear. He was under a legal obligation to detain Mr. Blake. However, the method of detainment that he chose, the method of physical force to enforce that detainment, he chose to fire his firearm when I think there was virtually nothing, to my knowledge, to warrant that. So you think about this. If it's a one-on-one scenario, you have all the reason to not want to engage in grappling or close quarters combat. You have to think, what if he takes my firearm, now that we're physically engaged right now, right? And basically, depending on the officer's risk level, would be how much they want to engage in grappling or close quarters combat. And that's in a one-on-one scenario, that's a legitimate concern for your self-defense. However, there were 2 officers less than 10 feet away. So it's not going to be a one-on-one scenario. It's going to be a 3-on-1 scenario. So I don't think that he needed to be overly concerned with losing a physical, grappling scenario. Second off, if Mr. Blake's behavior was say very, very hostile, if there was anything about him to have indicated that he was going to reach for a weapon in his car, or that he was going to use his car to run somebody down, those are legitimate concerns especially if he was exhibiting hostile behavior, that he wasn't. He was extraordinarily calmly, slowly walking well, not slowly, but like it was very deliberate steps. It wasn't rushed.
Yeah.
You know, it was very deliberately and calmly attempting to enter his vehicle. So like you put these two together, I don't see a scenario where the officer sees it as appropriate for him to use his firearm to attempt to physically restrain Mr. Blake. Like he had to restrain him, right? That is how I interpret the sequence of events so far. That part had to be done. That part is on Mr. Blake, but there was no reason for him to have used the firearm in the situation that I saw in the video. So, all right, there's my speech. What do you guys think?
My opinion is pretty simple. Definitely should not have shot, and I don't know if the whole tasing thing that he was supposedly tased before this. Like, I like watching the video and everything. I'm like, how is he walking after being tased? Because tasing hurts like a motherfucker.
Yeah. So
You don't walk that calmly. You don't walk that deliberately after being tased. You usually have a big urine stain on the front of your pants, and you're like laying there for a few minutes. Like, I just don't see how that happened. Like, I think they skipped a level of detainment there, and I think the officer was just
So
just
I can tell you that
overzealous.
because I've been tased myself. I definitely did not pee myself. That being said, it absolutely knocked me down. Like I can't imagine, anybody like getting back up after that. And yet time and time again, I see videos of people doing it. So, and as well, I wasn't the only one tased in this scenario. It wasn't a hostile scenario.
You have to be tased when you're in the military.
I was adjacent to other people that were tased right after me, and it did not debilitate them as much as it debilitated me. So again,
it debilitates me, and I say 300 fucking pounds.
Yeah, some people are able to shrug it off, man. It's kind of weird, but for most people, yeah, it knocks you down.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah, I think Jason worded it very well. What I was thinking about, they kind of skipped a step, and I think that's very important to realize. Like, it's not like I haven't seen the video myself yet, but it doesn't seem like they gave him a very vocal warning or an opportunity to stop leaving a lawful order, to not to stay with them and continue.
You don't know that right now, Gianmarco. You're assuming that
exactly.
But we don't know. We have no knowledge of this. Right?
Yeah, so just based on my understanding of the situation, I think regardless, going from engaging with this person in conversation, whatever they were speaking about, to him walking away and immediately preparing to use your firearm was a huge unnecessary escalation of the situation.
Probably.
I mean, probably. And
yeah,
if they tased him,
right.
Like, my also thought process on it is, if they tased him, they would have had to get for him to be able to get up and walk away, they would have had to get close enough to remove the things if it wasn't one of those shot, or they would have had to already been close enough to physically put the taser on him.
No, they can fall off fairly easily. That's not true. Also, it's possible that they didn't, engage. It's possible that a tased was more like an attempted tase, which would fill a lot of gaps. Police also.
You have only a range of 6 feet on those.
It depends.
Yeah.
Some of them go up to 12.
And then my bigger issue with all of these unfortunate events that we become desensitized about is the kind of politicization of it all. There seems to be, there are obvious people that are, if you're not specifically support of the BLM movement, it means you're against it. And the other way around with the Blue Lives Matter, it is possible. I think my friend worded it very well. It is possible to, you vote for whoever you want, whatever political ideology you support, but it is possible to still have empathy for these situations. And that is extraordinarily important. Sure, I've seen some people online that are supportive of police for various reasons. They could be related to one. They could have been in the force themselves. They maybe are police officers. I understand we do need law enforcement as a society. But at the same time, they also understand that these people did go out of line. But, a bigger underlying issue is how this is being kind of taken as like a political issue or just a stance. Like if you're not for us, you're against us, so to speak, regardless of which side you're on.
Yeah, I agree. The politicization of everything is unfortunate. Like me, I really wish that we were able to just find out what actually happened. See if there are other videos that were recording before the video that started that I saw. Because lead up is incredibly important, right?
Yeah. It's kind of like
jumping to their assumptions of either police are right or police are wrong. And like I just tried to most factually like lay it out and see it as how I see it. And it's very, very ugly. As far as I can tell, Mr. Blake is responsible for being put in the situation that he was in, but the officer is the one responsible for choosing to use that method of force. And it's a method of force that, as far as I can tell, was completely unwarranted.
It was an overstep in so many ways. I mean, they went, and that was a big step that they missed. I mean, and I think a way to fix it is like, body cams, and they need to be publicly accessible immediately after something like this. That way everyone has an informed decision, because right now you have leaders like Shaun King out there doxing police officers that live in that community, like posting their names and addresses. And that's just fucked up. That leads the rioters directly to their houses. And that's like one person against however many rioters decide to show up. That's a
right. We're supposed to let our legal system, have due process and due course, right? Like, you guys, I'm sure, are familiar with the Rodney King trial and Rodney King riots, right? Like, so Rodney King, for example, the courts decided that he deserved in compensation for the unjust beating or excess beating, millions of dollars, right? Now, I don't want to get into like how that number is determined as fair or whatever, but like, the courts have a chance to make restitution and make it right, right? And it's unfortunate that we are going straight to jumping to conclusions, jumping to assumptions, and trying to I don't know, watch the world for kind of what it feels like.
And as with the case with the George Floyd incident, sure, I understand. I mean, that was a horrible thing to see in that video, and people were very, very upset that they did not get charged with first-degree murder outright. But as we learned in the weeks following, when the body cam footage came out, there is now evidence that George Floyd was saying, "I couldn't breathe" before the knee was even placed on his neck. I know that is a whole piece of the lead-up information that we weren't aware about that we now know.
But at the same time, when you watch that video, it's like he was obviously in distress, and the officers didn't stop to try to address that distress.
Yes. We're all in agreement that
go through and just push it through, like they do everything, and
I think we're all in general agreement that
and let's try to fix this. Let's try to calm them down. Instead, they were just trying to push it through as quickly as possible so they could, like clock out at the end of their 8 hours or something. The entire situation on the body cam just felt extremely rushed. Like they didn't care. They just wanted to push it through, and it just ended up in one of those situations where it just ended badly when they tried to rush their job. But like we've said on this podcast many times, the pay for police is not enough to attract the best people that are going to do the best job. And so you end up with the exact type of people that we have doing this job a lot of the times. And they're people who just want to punch a clock and go home, and they don't care enough about the job to do it right. Which is, and it's just like, it's just wrong. So, I mean,
yeah.
And I really hope that we see more of like what the hell happened here, because it makes no sense. And Pierce mentioned the courts have a legal way to make it right with money. But I mean, this guy can't walk again. He will most likely never walk again.
Yeah, I'm not trying to say that.
Yeah.
All right. Don't misunderstand me. I'm just trying.
I'm not misunderstanding. Like, I'm just like, no amount of money is enough for that. In my opinion. Like, just to be like debilitated like that, to take away my legs would just like suck balls.
Yeah, and I think that ties to a bigger conversation where, like, yeah, sure, there is due process and courts have a chance to make amends to those that were wronged. But, as we know, that's solving a problem at the end of the chain. We're talking about, better training for police, get better quality people.
Yeah.
But there have been various cases where people turn down these settlement offers because they know they can't keep quiet. Like, law enforcement in general has an escalation problem.
Yeah.
Where, I can only imagine personally from a standpoint of an officer, sure, if I'm confronted with someone, like, I don't know if they're going to go after my firearm and put me in danger. Like, an officer's life is still a life regardless of what side of this conversation you're on too. And it always goes back to just how can we be proactive and solve the problem before it becomes a problem. And the more this drags on, the more people are pushed to the edge about these things. All of this is going to continue happening because people are just fed up simply. Like, there's countless people that understand that if they don't do anything, there's a newscaster on NBA that had a phenomenal piece. I'd recommend we put her up, but he was basically speaking about, he stands with these teams that are sitting out, that are boycotting the game in the wake of these recent events. And, it's, a lot of people can say leave politics out of your profession. I understand that. But to a certain degree, like, I kind of see when people say that, they're kind of neglecting the fact that you're neglecting your things that affect your everyday life. This isn't just about me having an opinion. It's me about expressing concerns that I have about the way our society is going. And, I've heard people say, like, I wish other people could boycott and stand up like the NBA have. Like, yeah, well, we don't have, a lot of people can't, literally. They don't have the mental resources or the financial resources to boycott their work and try to make a stand. And that's a whole other issue altogether.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
That's true. I'm sure there are thousands, if not, I forget the exact number of how many cops there are across the country, but let's just say I'm sure there are at least 1 million cops that work every day as a cop across the country that don't want to go to work because they completely disagree with how everything has been handled by these certain officers in these certain areas and everything. I'm sure of it. And just like when the National Guard is called into all these different situations, I am sure most of them do not want to be there. They are just obligated to be there because they signed up to serve their country, and they have to follow this insane leader to be and be there to a degree.
Yeah.
You can't walk off stuff. Like, you can't just leave the Army. You can't just leave the National Guard. You can't just leave the Air Force, Marines, Navy. You just can't get up and walk away and say, you know what, I quit.
Yeah, right.
It would be fantastic if you could. And with police forces, you can just say I quit and not show up to work again. But at the same time, it's like you don't have the money, you don't have the resources because you're paid like shit.
That's exactly one of the big issues. I think police have a recruitment and a retainment problem first and foremost. I think they have a training problem second. A lot of people don't like that answer, but there's definitely a lot of departments with a training problem. But I believe first and foremost, police have a recruitment and retention problem. They are recruiting people that are not people that you want to have as an officer, and they're pushing out people that you do want. We see this actually to a large extent in the military. You see a lot of the good guys just go like, you know what, I give up. I see this broken system. I'm done. I'm going to go make more money somewhere else, or I'll find another capacity to serve. You see veterans just choose to get out and advance their life some other way all the time. Right. And very, very often you end up having toxic people that just float to the top because they're the ones that stuck around, and then they create an environment that is continually more toxic and more, going to push people out. There's the famous phrase, snitches get stitches, right? Like, nobody likes the guy in your team that is bringing up someone else's wrongdoing or calling someone else out on their shit or something like that. But that's exactly what you need, where not only do we respond to social pressures, but when someone in a position of authority is committing wrongs, that needs to be nipped in the bud, or else you're going to be dealing with the wrongs that they're committing. And almost always that is worse than simply removing the, diseased appendage from the body.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's changing the culture in general. And while many of us agree that a lot of the responsibilities that officers have should be kind of lifted off their shoulders, so we can call a mental health expert if we need to. I think something that's slightly overlooked right now is even if we do all of these things that we agree on, we also have to tackle the problem of changing the culture around how we call for help as a society.
Sure.
Because right now we're just kind of hardwired into, there's a problem, call 911, regardless if it's a domestic dispute inside of a household, regardless if it's an armed robbery. It's a, I can understand the notion that of the simplicity of it all. Sure, we're having law enforcement as a catch-all to deal with all of these problems, but at the same time, we also understand that they don't have the capacity to effectively deal with all of these problems. So it's also going to count on a lot of us being able to properly change the culture. Okay, if I'm not calling 911, what am I calling? Am I calling 911 and telling them, hey, I don't need an officer specifically, but I don't know exactly what I need in this particular situation. If it's a life and death situation, I'm sure it's kind of straightforward. I need an officer here right now. My safety is in danger. But if it's something that can be it's not an immediate threat to anyone or immediate harm, then you can have a conversation with dispatch and let them know, okay, what do you think is the best course of action for this? And I think that might be a good way we're pushing it too, because the dispatcher might know, okay, I know that no one's in immediate danger. This seems like this person just needs someone to talk to. If it's maybe a mental health problem, they may be a little unstable, and they can call the appropriate people that are trained specifically to how to handle these kinds of problems in a way that won't escalate a situation to a point that it becomes an issue of law enforcement that are properly armed.
Yeah.
We just want to minimize these incidents.
Yeah, we ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, right? We can do a whole lot more for a lot more effect in the prevention side. Those themes generally get a lot less media attention, though, of course, and it's harder to mobilize people around. But this is going to be your weekly endorsement of universal basic income. It will help so many people live, quite frankly, and improve themselves and make all of these problems easier to solve. It won't fix everything. It won't come close to fixing everything, but it will make everything better than it is right now. So we really need universal basic income.
Because as a society, people are hardwired to look for the fast and easy solutions. And what can a president do in his first 100 days or in his first term? A lot of these fundamental issues have been decades in the making, and you cannot fix that in 100 days or in a presidential term overnight. You have to start thinking that this is going to be a slow and annoying process. It might not get the results you want immediately, but we have to take the right steps in the right direction in general. And if we're not doing that, we're only setting ourselves up exponentially more.
Well, what you can do overnight is pass a bill to give everyone $1,000 a month. Well, not literally overnight, but you can do it in a couple of days.
Right.
First one, the first 100 days, pass universal basic income. It helps. It'll clear maybe 10% of all the world's problems off your fucking plate. I mean, if you're a politician,
about the freedom dividend was that it was actually paid for. It identified a flaw in our current tax system where Netflix, Amazon, FedEx, all these companies are paying literally $0 in taxes, and said, hey, you know what? We are the only country in the Organization of Economically, whatever C is, countries for development, whatever. We're the only OECD nation without value-added tax. Everybody else has figured it out that in order to simplify tax law and get, minimize loopholes, or not minimize loopholes, but still ensure companies pay taxes despite loopholes, value-added tax is the answer, right?
Yeah, the freaking United States has literally become the freaking Cayman Islands for companies. I mean, you have Lego that moved over their incorporation over here while still having a home office wherever the hell they are, and Denmark or Legoland or Finland or one of those countries where the same place that makes IKEA.
Yeah.
But they'll move their incorporations over here just to avoid that VAT tax and stuff. And until we get one, we're just going to be a safe haven for people who are becoming billionaires to come over here and do nothing. not, yeah, they'll give a couple thousand people, jobs and stuff, but they won't like add to our economy in any substantial way that increases our buying power or raises the floor of our people. I mean, it's insane.
Well,
Yeah.
creating jobs is definitely adding to our economy, without a doubt. That being said, incorporating somewhere does not create thousands of jobs by itself. It could create two, on the cheap end. And it's worth noting that, we have companies actually leaving the United States to incorporate elsewhere for favorable tax structure as well. And neither of the reasons why you could flee either to the United States or from the United States to take advantage of tax systems, neither one of those matters with the value-added tax.
Exactly.
Since it's applied at the point of sale, are you selling something? Great, here's the tax, right? And I mean, I used to have an extraordinarily libertarian mindset. I mean, it's obviously easy to recognize that a hardcore libertarian isn't going to get anything done. A lot of the ideas, when taken to the extreme, are just not practical, as are ideas for almost anything taken to the extreme. But there's a lot of, I think, good guiding beliefs in the libertarian mindset, and one of those is that you actually want less taxation as a whole, and that's something that I really obviously like to see. So it's ironic for me to be saying, "Hey, I want to add this tax." That is very antithetical to my typical stance. But
I think you want to see like less taxes on the individuals in your society, but like the companies in your society, and like you said, yeah, you can't escape the value added tax and everything, like by moving here. But like if you buy all your stuff in the United States where there's not a value added tax and then ship it to, your company over here in another country, I'm pretty sure they don't add the value added tax onto it. And even if they do, you're probably able to write that value added tax off on your taxes in the United States since you are now incorporated over here because it's part of doing business overseas and contributing to the global economy. So, I mean, it's just, it's weird.
Bouncing off of the payment of UBI, there's actually something I want to poke your brain about, Pierce. What is your stance on our military spending? Like, what if someone says, like, what if we help pay for UBI by decreasing our in my opinion, very, very, very outsized military spending? Because I have also a genuine concern, like, okay, there are factual reasons in terms of helping our allies across the world and having our soft and hard power influences, in large part because of our military spending. Yep. But what would be, I guess, the appropriate question, what would be the negative effects of, let's say, pulling back 10 or 15% of the U.S. military budget to help pay for other programs, including UBI?
So first off, the cutback is certainly not going to get how you want it, because everyone's going to say, not in my backyard, and no one is going to have any idea how to actually make such a large cut like that happen. And in this political environment, it basically won't. In all honesty, Congress will just go like, oh, well, you tried, here's some extra money anyway. And that's realistically what's going to happen. But how it would get incorporated? Oh, hey, this, basic little, actually, I'll give you an example. Let's say that you are working in an environment every single day. It's a classified environment. You can't use your own laptop, and your computer is ancient, right? And you're slated for an upgrade. That's not going to happen. Even if it would increase your work efficiency by double, that upgrade will now no longer happen. I'll tell you, it's going to be things like that are going to be facing the brunt. Things where you actually want money, because the way that the government as a whole, including the military, sees spending is discretionary and non-discretionary, which is kind of a misnomer, because whatever's discretionary is usually not, and whatever is non-discretionary is very frequently discretionary, in my opinion, as I think a lot of veterans would agree with me. But it's all about, where does the money flow, and just we're such a large bureaucracy that we wouldn't have, I think, a feasible chance of effectively getting it done, or effectively getting it done in a way that doesn't cripple our operations. And that is the other point that you were trying to bring up, people don't see what they get for the United States military budget. So it is absolutely bloated. I will not argue that with anyone. Anyone that has spent 10 days in the military will tell you that our budget is bloated, and they could point out, hey, I think that should be not where we're spending money. I think that should be not where we're spending money. And I think if you were to get enough people to like give those opinions, they might actually be able to point you in some decent directions, and maybe you could discern, all right, is this an opinion or is this like supported? That would help. I have no faith in the military to ever conduct that kind of survey because they're not going to like the answers that come back to them. I will tell you up front, one of our most costly programs that we're wasting money on is the F-35. Lockheed Martin has been downright abusing the United States military as a cash cow for that program. And at this point, I genuinely believe that they're creating issues with it in order to get paid for fixing them. I actually believe this. There's no reason for this program to have cost what it's done and taken as long as it is. And at this point, things get outdated very, very quickly in an increasingly advancing or technological society, including warfare, right? So now we're spending all this money on this next generation strike fighter that's supposed to last us a couple decades, and it's not. It will not be current 20 years from now. That is not going to happen, hands down. So if you want me to give you a single item of like, oh, hey, something you can write off the entire F-35 program, just be gone with it. I don't think it's worth its weight at all. Lockheed Martin's been screwing us over. Just get rid of it. And honestly, I would try to take as much money back from them as I could, because again, I believe that they've been literally abusing the United States military. But all right, more talking though. What do we actually get for this military spending? Most people don't see what you get for it, and it's absolutely massive. It is so massive, and this is why, as a whole, I also caution against cutting military spending, because we keep the world peace. And I don't mean that in a global, world police sense. Obviously we're not sending troops to every single little conflict that's going on in the world. But right now we spend more money than anyone else to have the strongest military in the world. And because we have the strongest military in the world, that enables our allies to count reliably that we will have the strongest military in the world, which means that we can solve military problems if needed, which means that these military problems are prevented. And remember what I said about an ounce of prevention being worth a pound of cure? Holy moly, is that true in regards to warfare? You want to spend every dollar that you can to prevent war, because war is expensive. And I don't mean on the blank check, dollars being spent. I'm talking about ruined communities, destroyed lives, culture, everything. War is costly. If you think our military budget is costly, try war. War is costly. So we are preventing so many conflicts simply by our presence. And then there's all the geopolitical, things that can be expanded upon that, how we're able to advance certain interests of our own, and so on and so forth. And then there's also the fact that it's like a jobs training program. It is one of the best tickets to the American dream that you can ask for. They will take an uneducated person that has received no skills training whatsoever from a broken home and immediately put them on a track to financial security and the middle class and what is generally considered a respectable profession. There are a few other places that are universally available to everyone that would do this. And in the military, as long as you're able-bodied, you get they won't turn you down as long as you're able-bodied. And it is such an effective jobs program. I hate to think that people think, oh, hey, we should cut down the military, which is bringing people out of poverty, and taking a kid with no skills and teaching him how to park planes on aircraft carriers. I hate to think that people should say we should turn that down and then say, oh, but my personal private government welfare program, I want to see that get grown.
Here's a question I want to ask you, Pierce.
The disconnect, you're arguing against yourself is kind of how I feel these things often are. A lot of people don't value that we get out of the military.
Here's a question I want to bring up to you and get your opinion on it. My father served for like ever in the military. He said one of the biggest expenditures is all the civilians that we bring into it. He says we train people to be wartime chefs and make sure our troops have hot meals and everything the most we can in times of war, but yet they're not allowed to cook in a kitchen on a military base. We bring chefs in. We have people that are trained to be secretaries overseas at times of war, but yet I can't have one of those well-trained Marines on my damn desk when I have to have some blonde bimbo from a tent pool from a staffing agency. I can't call one of my Army Corps of Engineers to reset my freaking router because I have to call freaking Best Buy and have them send a tech out to fix it because that's where we bought the router from. Like, does he have a good point with that, or is he just being?
Yeah, so there's two reasons for that. One, the government, likes to make sure proper procedures are followed, even at their own detriment, right? So it's like, all right, if this is the procedure to get this thing fixed, then this is how it gets fixed. All right, well, how does it get fixed reliably every single time? You have that Best Buy technician, I guess, come out. I've never actually heard of a Best Buy or Geek Squad or whatever technician coming onto a military base. Never actually heard of that. But like,
well, you got to remember, my dad served well before your time, so they could have eliminated the Geek Squad tech or whatever.
I'm just saying I'd never saw it, but like the general idea of it is true. And the other one is, having contractors come in and do what you would think would be a military job, such as being a secretary or being a cook. And that is basically how the military figured to get around congressional manning limits. So Congress decides that you have this many men that you're allowed to have. Our, standing active duty force by Congress is like 300,000 people or something like that. And you, the base commander, you have all these missions that are assigned to you, and you decide, oh, well, I need to meet these missions. How many people do I need to meet these missions? And then you go, well, shoot, I don't have enough spots for cooks. Well, wait, I can outsource cooks. If I ask for, money, which generally speaking, Congress gives, I can hire a cook, and they're not a military person, so I'm going to stay in my authorized personnel limit. It's kind of a goose chase, if that makes sense. It's stupid. But
I mean, that was like one of his biggest complaints coming out of it, and why he didn't like sign up and try to like make general, is because he just, he was just so fed up with like, I have to have all of this happen before I can have this happen, but yet I have the best trained man for the job, like right the hell there, and I can't have him do it.
Yeah, same thing as for the police. Like a lot of good people just decide, you know what, I'm done with this bullshit, and I'm out. I'm gonna go make more money elsewhere. And your dad did exactly just that.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
It's unfortunate. You want to retain the best people, not push them out. And unfortunately, very frequently you see them get pushed out. The military is largely resilient to that, though. Like there's a reason why, as a whole, I still recommend joining the military to most people. And that's because up front, it's a pretty good meritocracy. I would say it's much more of a meritocracy, or much more likely to be a meritocracy, than just a random job in the civilian workplace.
Yeah.
Because the military tells you up front, this is what you need to do to get promoted. This is the requirement to get promoted. You meet it, right? And you then either you meet it or you don't. It's basically as simple as that. So like advancing the chain is very possible for very capable individuals, and that keeps it insulated from becoming a entire disaster that doesn't have good people in it at all.
Yeah, like many of our police forces around the nation.
Sorry?
I said like many of our police forces around the nation, where it's like, who do you know best? Who do you shake hands with the most? Who do you play poker with? Who do you drink with? And that's usually who gets the promotion when it comes to police forces in general. And which is why you end up with the toxic situations that you end up with.
Right. And the military promotion structures, although they're not protected from that, they're insulated from that, if that makes sense.
Well, a little insulation goes a long way. We were all in Iowa. We know how important insulation is.
Yeah, it was cold out there, brother. It was real cold.
I'm still amazed when you pointed out that none of us got sick in that time.
I know, right? All of these
people from a broken back. I mean, yeah.
Gosh. But yeah, it was a
I think
very
it was all the orange juice we went through, honestly, because we were buying 2 gallons a day.
yeah.
Something like that.
We definitely contributed to the local economy.
Yeah.
It was very
Look at that taco shop. I mean, all of their kids are going to college, hands down, regardless.
yeah. And then, it was Piers. It was very enlightening your perspective on, what we get out of the military in terms of preventing wars. And I totally agree. Like, a war itself is something you want to prevent. And I never thought about the fact that having, some might consider a bloated military to some degree is actually, a lot cheaper than what we could be experiencing should we not have that.
Yeah. Plus, you got to work. The pure intimidation factor. We scare the hell out of a lot of nations to not doing things, because our military for the most part is the best trained. It's the best, equipped to do anything, which is, why even pure manpower numbers, don't really intimidate us to that point, because we have ways of having one man kill like 30, 40 people at a time. It's
yeah. Traditionally, my main thought of like there not going to be any conflict is just mutually assured destruction, which has been the the overriding doctrine for several years. I never thought of it as like, everyone wants to avoid that. We can also have more, I would hate to say traditional wars as a thing. That would still be very costly. But I think in general, one thing our nation or many nations in general is severely lacking in is cybersecurity infrastructure. Because as we have learned various times over the past few years, especially that we can have our entire infrastructure in terms of utilities, power, water, just attacked and just grind us to a halt in very severe ways.
But the fact that the water and electric, they're not controlled by the government, so therefore we don't have the best government. We don't have the government protecting it, and it's just a way that the corporations that own the power companies and stuff that have been hacked and stuff they're skipping on cybersecurity. They figure, who wants to hack us?
So for what it's worth, that's not entirely accurate. Department of Energy is a thing, and it likes to keep informed. And although I won't get into details on what is and isn't secure, I will say that the government is most certainly involved in the protection of our energy infrastructure. Whether they are sufficiently involved or not is another issue. I was actually part of ICS Village at DEF CON. If you're a computer, hacker, cybersecurity guy, you'll know what that means. So this is something that I actually know a little bit about. And I can tell you that we definitely need to be paying more attention to cybersecurity as a whole, including or especially so the ICS space. ICS stands for Industrial Control Systems. Energy infrastructure falls under it. I was going to say, for one thing that genuinely excited me about Andrew Yang, like all of this stuff about UBI was cool and all, but what actually flipped the switch for, holy shit, I'm excited about Andrew Yang, was the fact that he had a cybersecurity policy. The fact that he recognized that China and other countries are currently today collecting our communications. And even though those comms might be encrypted right now, when quantum computing comes around the corner, those comms will be able to be de-encrypted and be able to be read. And then those nations are going to have all the juicy information about you, about our elected leaders, about how we do things, and you name it. And that is a massive security flaw that is happening right now. And it's not a check that we have to pay right now. It's a check that we have to pay later. But it is a massive problem we have right now. And the fact that he was aware of it and recognized it and had a problem or a problem addressed and an attempted solution for it, I was like, oh my God, I am excited about a political candidate for the first time in my life. Let me do what I can to get this man president.
And look at it, the man drove all the way from Rochester, New York to Iowa.
Yep.
Not even a good part of Iowa over in the east, but to the middle of nowhere, Iowa in the west.
Yeah, and it's where I thought I'd make the most difference.
How long was the drive again, going back to Rochester after Iowa?
Oh, I don't even remember. 20 hours maybe?
Yeah. You never got pulled over, right?
No. In fact, I did not.
Yep, he got pulled over more in Iowa than he did
Yeah.
coming to Storm Lake or going to Rochester.
I'll never forget our final meal at the taco stop.
Yeah. With Devin on the phone as a
Oh my god, Devin on the that's one of my favorite mannerisms about Devin. Like, you could be like rushing him to get something done. He'll give you like smiles, like, and like we just keep on doing our thing. And I'm like, no, it doesn't change the fact that we have to get fucking going. But like, I remember we left to go return like the gym stuff that we borrowed from the gym. We came back and he was still on the phone with that shit-eating grin that I just find like almost excusable.
Well, it was probably with his girlfriend, and I mean,
It was.
that's a damn good reason.
Yeah.
I mean,
He was
Victoria's
like
amazing.
racist
So-
on flight problem.
Yeah, but he was keeping us back though, you know, because he wasn't willing to have the conversation in the car, which I get. But that made us all wait for him.
I
he's a
forgive
good
him
guy.
that, man.
I miss that guy. I'm glad we were able to have him on the podcast a while ago. Maybe we'll have him back. Devin,
Yeah,
That's
Devin,
the one podcast I had to miss.
Devin's good people.
He is.
He's good to be around. All right, so what next, guys?
I don't know. I think we covered, have we missed any of the shit that's like, I don't know.
Let's go to DEF
See you,
CON.
Daniel.
Oh, Sue's
Hello,
back.
Sue.
What's up, Sue? Sue's back. Hello from Portugal.
Hey, Sue.
If you totally catch me on Royce again, I'm pretty sure he's going to have me back at some point.
All right. Good night, Sue. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I know.
we actually
What
ran
else?
out of things to talk about 9 minutes early instead of going 15 minutes over.
I mean, we can just talk about how stoked I am that you can hear me clearly.
True.
Dude.
He got a free microphone.
I've had this microphone for a while, but I just didn't have a stand for it. And I actually got a new cable today because previously it was having a lot of floor noise issues. So I got a new XLR cable and it seems to have solved it. It seems to be like going from like a crappy CRTV to like high definition.
Dude, it's a phenomenal difference. I'm so glad that you got the mic working.
Yeah, and no one ever pointed it out to me until I saw a recording. I'm like, oh my gosh, I am sorry I'm your friend.
We've told you.
You didn't believe us.
About his audio pierce.
I just didn't think it was that bad.
I thought at this point you trusted my opinion on things, man. With all we've been through, you didn't trust me.
Yeah, like,
It's all right, brother. Glad your mic sounded better, man. It's definitely good.
And
Hey,
another
like
side positive of this is that it's helping with my posture. Like I kind of force my mic to be at a certain height, so I have to like stand up and like make sure I'm at that level to talk properly.
yeah.
What you were saying?
Too, and is worried about his posture and standing taller than everyone else. I'm
Right.
fixated. I want to slump as much as possible. That way, I can be like on everyone else's level.
Yeah, Jason. So, like, personal question, man. Just in front of everybody watching. How's your back doing, brother?
I was about to ask.
Motherfucker, still every day.
Yeah.
I'm up to 4 Percocet at 10 milligrams each every day.
Yeah. So for everyone watching, Jason unfortunately had a fracture in his spine when he was out in Iowa, and this is considered to be a non-emergency surgery that he is required. And
Yeah, considering it's medically treatable and it's not bad enough to risk surgery with COVID currently.
right, current COVID protections are saying that he is not allowed to get this surgery.
But yeah, Simon Cowell herniates his disc and immediately gets back surgery in a bicycle accident. So
Yeah.
son of a bitch. I wish I had a mean British accent and didn't give a fuck about feelings.
Has your at least overall pain at least improved from the incident or the weeks that followed
The
it?
more Percocet they give me, the better I do.
The what?
The more Percocet they give me, the better I do.
Yeah, but you're saying your Percocet prescription has gone up though, right?
Yeah,
Your
it's
dosage?
so therefore, like the way I feel has gone up tremendously. But at the same time, I like before I ran the 802 initiative for Tulsa here in Oklahoma. I like went cold turkey off of it, and that was like the most miserable week of my life because I could barely move. Like I was like rolling to the floor out of the bed and like literally crawling into the shower stall just to run hot water over it so I could pull myself up to, take Tylenol and try to get through the day because I wanted to be at my absolute best instead of being pretty high and happy all the time.
Yeah, but now you're getting literally addicted to opiates. Like
Sure.
like you are a walking example of the opiate pandemic that we hear about.
Yeah. I'm probably going to shoot heroin if they ever take it away. Who knows? That's a joke. I will never shoot heroin. Well, never
Yeah.
say never, but yeah.
Yeah, but like when you come off that, like that is rough.
Yeah.
You know. So I broke my leg once, and I know I told Jason this, but I don't think I've told John Marco this. So when I broke my leg, I had surgery and whatnot, and it was excruciatingly painful, of course. And I was given Percocet to help with the pain, and I was given, I think it was a 4-day supply. The doctor was like, "This stuff is super addictive. We don't want to get you addicted to it. You're gonna take Tylenol. Tylenol is gonna be your pain medication after 4 days. Here is 8 pills of Percocet. Good luck." Is basically how the military doc sent me off. And like in hindsight, I'm glad he did. But dude, that day that I got off the Percocet was mind-bogglingly painful. I was like, I am willing to murder someone if I can just get another pill to make this pain go away. So like you being
that was just 4 days.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Like honestly,
I've been on since end of March or middle of March. So
right, I fear for you, honestly.
yeah.
Like
and this is my last MRI, which I had around my birthday. It's now on the L4 that I fractured is now going to be double fusion. So they're going to have to cut into the L5 and the L3 and do a double fusion on that. And the T12 is still a single fusion surgery. So
I don't know the details of it. I just know that doesn't sound good.
yeah. So I mean, so it's technically gotten worse. And everything, but yeah, from me just like walking around and having to function on it because you can't just like lay in bed all day and like rest. It's just not feasible. So you have to be around to be able to go around and function and stuff. And like if I would have had the surgery, I would have already been recovered from the surgery.
Yeah.
And I've already got COVID, so well, actually I tested negative, so
yeah, at least you're done with COVID.
And then I get to have the antibody thing. So
have you during your time with COVID, did you experience any symptoms or have you had lingering symptoms after your negative test result?
About the only symptom I think I've like possibly because there are like different strains of COVID all with different symptoms. And I was asymptomatic, but like the only possible one is the fact that my medication wasn't as effective because apparently some COVID will mess with your pain receptors. So like for about 2 or 3 days, like nothing was working for my back. So
Jesus, man. Shoot, well, when the time comes that you have to get off Percocet, please like stay in touch with us. Like I'd love to help you through in any way that I can, especially moral support.
Yeah. Well, I made it through a week off of it before, but that's before they increased the dosage and everything. So we'll see. But luckily, like anytime I like complain about my back and stuff, like everyone from the like gang and stuff is like reaches out and says, "Hey, we're here for you," and offers like help if and that's just like fantastic of them. Like the moral support and everything is just like fantastic. So I appreciate like absolutely everyone who reaches out and says, "Hey, we hope you do better. Keep fighting it. You'll get better soon. Everything will work out soon." So.
And so that I understand it as well as I could talking to you right now. So could it be the case that let's say you have an operation or some procedure that alleviates the pain and the need for Percocet?
Yeah.
Would that make leaving Percocet better? Because from my understanding right now, it's just something that you depend on for the pain.
Yeah, I honestly think the second the surgery happens, and the pain is alleviated, because right now it's just all about the pressure and the fractures because the bone is just fractured and it's allowing, the pressure and everything. So between the vertebrae and on the nerves. So as soon as that pressure is alleviated by doing the spinal fusion and stuff, then, my nerves will get a chance to breathe and heal and, I'll no longer need the Percocet, and I'm pretty mentally strong enough, I went cold turkey for a week just so I could, do something for the betterment of, society as a whole. So, and, I honestly, and I did it successfully but God, the first pill back was amazing. like when it kicked in. But like just hopefully it all works out and stuff. So I don't think it'll be an issue getting off of it. I hope not. Fingers crossed. Cross like all 10 of them if I can. Let's see if I did this the other day. Yeah, all 10 fingers crossed. So
And
Anything,
never.
man, you let me know.
Yeah.
we'll do.
I've only got it.
I've been super supportive of it. So you've already saved my ass a few times. So
Good. I'm glad to hear it. I think that's 1 hour, and I think that's also a good clean spot to wrap this up. Everyone watching, thank you. You want to give any last
I promise I will always be like completely honest about like this weird journey that I am on with them. So and I just like appreciate everyone reaching out and keeping me honest on it and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, it's a positive note. Everyone watching, always check in on your friends and loved ones, man. Even if you think all is well and fine, just ask them just straight up, how are you doing? That goes a long way sometimes.
It definitely does. Oh yeah.
2.5 months together, all three of us, and we're like family. We love each other, and we miss Rob.
We'll be back next week.
I thought it was Wednesday. I'm sad.
Everyone watching, stay healthy. Stay safe.
Dang.